I imagined that I would see a Maserati sort of halfway up the door line with water. It's really cool though. Alright. Hey,
hi,
how you doing?
Fine.
Good to see you again.
Ready?
In the Levante. This is cool. So this is the first time we've been taking this car off-road. Alright, let's go and see how we do.
Of course, in this mod, so the four-wheel driving system, Maserati working always for you're cool. The best drive.
It's a smooth ride though, isn't it?
Yeah.
So here we are, we're in some deep slush now. That was pretty impressive actually. We were on full lock, really tight lock, in some deep slush, and I don't even know if the traction control even came on then, it just pulled out.
But I think you need only a little bit of confidence.
Sure, right?
Because for my personal opinion, you have a good feel on the steering and then you are ready.
We try
without the traction control.
Yeah. Everything off. Let's do it, man.
Off.
Let's do it.
You need only are very quickly on the control steer when the rear wheels start to slide.
During the development of the Levante, Maserati had 34 test cars that racked up a total of 2.7 million kilometers of development time. I mean, that's no small feat, is it? So needless to say, this isn't a platform that was just thrown together. The car was in development for a long time, and as a result you can really tell it's, as they say back in England, a proper piece of kit. So here we are! Hear it! That's that, straight off. That's how an SUV should sound, and that's why I'm genuinely interested in it. Let's just put this into manual. Whoa. I will start talking shortly, I'm still enjoying the characteristics of this engine note. What a lovely thing. So, before I digress too much, welcome to the delightful interior of the Maserati Levante. Now, this is all new for me, and when I say all new, I have never driven a Maserati ever. And so, I'm not sure if this is the right car for my induction. However, I am currently really interested in where the SUV market is heading. If you follow the car world, I'm sure you'll know that it is exploding. The amount of variations of SUVs which are hitting the market right now and are proposed to hit the market in future is crazy. And it just so happens that I'm currently contemplating an SUV myself. Let's start with the engine. 3-litre, twin-turbo, V6 with 430 horsepower, no less. And while those figures are cool, the coolest thing by far is the fact that it was developed in conjunction with Ferrari. So as a result, you get things like this. Oh, I love that. Now, I've approached this car with very little expectation because I genuinely didn't know what to expect. It's not that I've had any experiences with Maseratis previously, but I do know two things. First of all, it's an Italian car brand which, without exception, are full of character and emotion. And the Maseratis that I've always heard from the outside always sound brilliant. Now, this car is very well insulated. So as good as it does sound on the inside, it sounds even more awesome on the outside. This is one of the few turbocharged engines, which is actually a relatively small engine, that actually they've managed to sound really good. Now, if you're familiar with this channel, you'll know that I sometimes class myself as somewhat of a gearbox snob, but I have to admit that, here we go, just a second, we've got a semi-tunnel coming up here. Yes! Ooh, and the brakes are really good. Let me just pull these windows back up so we don't get too much noise distortion on the microphone. Loving this thing. And just as I'm taking these corners, and before I go back to talking about gearboxes, one thing that I am surprised at, and that I guess the only expectation that I did have, was I didn't expect the steering feel to be that good. It's actually quite meaty and gives you more feedback than I ever would have imagined. Anyway, onto that shortly when we get back onto some flowing roads. But yes, transmission, it is the engine, which I think we've established fairly early on, is mated to a more conventional automatic. It is an 8-speed ZF, and ZF gearboxes for me are some of, if not the best gearboxes in the game. So straight away, the platform, on paper at least, has all the signs of a very promising car. And as I mentioned, I can get a bit snobby about gearboxes, twin clutches in the automatic world being my favourite. This Auto ZF, it's an 8-speed, with the 8th gear being more of a sort of final drive gear for efficiency. But as you play it up and down this box, very responsive. You're not there pulling this pedal going, when's it gonna shift, like sloppy autos of old. This thing is now well and truly part of the modern generation of crisper autos, and it is a delight. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't slam it home like a twin clutch, but it still gives you a crisp enough response, and dare I say it, crisper than I was expecting in a car like this. Now, Maserati, historically, they have been a brand of racing cars, a brand for racing drivers, and a car for car enthusiasts and drivers as a whole. And so despite the fact that this car is obviously a more practical platform, it does have, 4 seats, or actually 5 seats, and a boot massive enough to fit in all of the luggage that I have been road tripping with lately. Ultimately, it does share the historic ethos of driver engagement, and as a result, this has a 50-50 weight distribution, meaning that this thing is very well balanced. And so when I'm threading it down these roads, all of these elements, the steering feel, the decent gearbox, the lovely engine, the torque from those twin turbos, and this lovely balance, has actually made it just a beautiful car to be in. Now, those things on paper, there are other cars, other brands and platforms which share a similar ethos out there, but we are in a Maserati, and the thing about that is that upon stepping inside it, it has such a unique character. And do you know what? This brand for me is almost like a sort of couture, high-end fashion brand. There's something about the styling of it, and the fact that it is Italian, so it just has this inherent passion infused in every stitch. There's something about it that just adds to the specialness upon stepping inside the car. Now, why I'm interested in it is that in this world, as mentioned, of just almost too many SUVs, too many 4x4s, a lot of them are starting to fit this generic mold, but it's the aesthetics and the passion for style and theatre that the Italians have, and particularly Maserati has, that I think has drawn me into it. Because even though this fits the daily driver tick box very well, it is infused with a bit more thought and attention to detail than the more mass-produced stuff out there. Aesthetically, I think from the front, it has its signature style. I love those sort of glinty, tight, squinting daytime running lights. I think the area of the car, which is my least favourite, is actually the rear. It's not that inspiring, but the rest of it makes up for it in droves. Now, something that I find gives context to a brand and their mindset as to where they sit in the world and the message that they want to convey to potential customers is the other brands that they partner with. You know, lots of manufacturers will partner with fashion brands to have their clothing made and watch brands. Partners of Maserati are Ermenegildo Zegna and Bulgari. Now, both of those brands are, you know, timeless, classy, Italian established brands. And I think when I walked on their stand at Geneva and I saw their partnerships, and I was like, of course Maserati would be rocking out with brands like that. I mean, Bulgari, steeped in Italian tradition of making like artisan, fine crafted jewelry. You might dismiss or passively consume partnerships with car brands, but actually it does paint a really nice picture, and it's something that I wouldn't normally talk about, but I think in the case of Maserati it's such an interesting alignment that says a lot more than you might think at first. Anyway, that was my first drive of any Maserati ever, and my first drive in the Levante. Sun is setting, let's get back to the hotel before I can't show you anymore.